All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocky Top Insider post-game show. This is Ryan Shumpert. I am Rick Butler, standing here in Columbia, South Carolina, after Tennessee officially wins outright the 2023-2024 SEC Basketball Regular Season Championship. Ryan, Tennessee did so with a victory over the Gamecocks here tonight by a score of 66-59. I don't know about you, but defense was one of the biggest takeaways for me.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't kind of like you expected, kind of like the game was back in Knoxville. It wasn't an overly pretty game for either team. Defense kind of carried the day. Tennessee holds South Carolina to under 40% shooting from the field, under 30% shooting from three-point line, and under 1 point per possession. So I thought, South Carolina is not just an electric offensive team. They like to play at a slow pace, but really where I thought Tennessee was much better in this game than they were back, it's been 6 weeks or so now since that first game. Tennessee's just interior defense and their post defense I thought was way, way better. They didn't let South Carolina's big men get going. And it was a very strong defensive performance.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, a strong, complete performance right there. Obviously, a lot of things happened for Tennessee here tonight, but the defense being one of those things that carried them, obviously only allowing 59 points to South Carolina. That was a big one. Don't connect. You know how many points he ended with? We don't have our stat sheet right in front of us. 26. What can you say about him?
Yeah, I mean, again, it was a night where it was hard to score for Tennessee, and it felt like not that he was perfect. He had a stretch early in the second half where he wasn't very efficient. But he just hit a number of big shots. He hit 3 straight threes kind of late in the first half as Tennessee pushed its lead from, it really for most of the first half, it was like 2 to 5 point lead. Tennessee led the whole time, but it was tight. They couldn't get any separation. He hit 3 big threes. Tennessee got to double digits at halftime. And then South Carolina kind of made that run early in the first half when Tennessee was struggling to score. And it felt like Dalton had the huge shot, the and one, the connect four. He made that joke in his post game. That put Tennessee back up by double digits. And obviously South Carolina made a run late and made it a little bit dicey for Tennessee. But after that point, it kind of felt like that steadied the waters for Tennessee. And he was the go-to guy. I mean, 2 other guys scoring double figures. I think it was 12 or 13 for Adu and Ziegler. They were both solid. Not a ton from James, not a ton from Waka, not a ton from Vescovy. Gainey hit 1 3. Really, it was a lot from Dalton and a little bit from those 2 other guys that have been pretty good. But just another example of against a really good defensive team where Dalton Connect kind of carried Tennessee's offense and just kept them afloat.
Yeah, it was. You talked about the run that South Carolina went on. In a lot of ways, this was a game of runs for the most part. Back and forth, a lot of it with Tennessee sort of holding a lead. But I thought that was one of the big things. And we can talk about a lot of the X and O's, but Tennessee battled out there on the court tonight. I felt like, they got out to a needed start there at the beginning of the game. Then we're able to kind of hold that lead for a while, but you can't just hold that lead. You've got to battle. You've got to be tough. Tennessee really relied on their veterans as well. Rick Barnes sort of talked about in his post-game press conference how, especially in those last 10 minutes, Tennessee really relied on those veteran players. The coaching staff knew they would because Tennessee knew that defense was going to be the thing that sort of got them to the finish line in that game. South Carolina makes that big run at the end, and people start hearing people here in the arena start getting nervous. South Carolina fans start getting up. There's a lot of momentum. So a big-time finish to the game, but Tennessee was able to hold their composure, do what they needed to do, and eventually put up the 7-point win.
Yeah, and I could be
whatever it was.
I could be 7, I think, and I could be getting it mixed up. 7 because that dunk South Carolina had at the end that didn't count was big for a lot of bettors out there. But no, I think, and I could be getting my possessions mixed up. But to me, I felt like the biggest moment, South Carolina got it to 3 with about 1:10 left. In Tennessee, I think it was Dalton. Kind of got doubled off a ball screen, found Jonas Adu. Adu finished with someone on his back, probably from 4 or 5 feet. That got it back to 5. Tennessee, I think, got a strip. Jemai Mashak maybe still on the other end. Vescovy hit some big free throws. James hit some big free throws. And I guess in a somewhat fitting way, on a night where Tennessee clinches the SEC championship, its first outright title since 2008, just 3rd ever. Its first SEC title since 2008, so the first for this group. Santiago Vescovy, Josiah Jordan James, those 2 guys hit the final. The 2 veteran seniors, 5th-year seniors, they hit the final 4 free throws as Tennessee put this one on ice.
Yeah, that's a big one right there. One of the other things that both coaches sort of talked about in their post-game press conference, Rick Barnes said it first, and then somebody went and asked Lamont Paris about it, but Tennessee's defensive strategy, going back to the whole defensive side of things, during the last meeting in Knoxville, Tennessee was switching a lot of sort of the on-ball stuff coming from the top of the key. Tennessee didn't do a lot of that tonight. They fought through those screens. They were tough. They were physical. And again, I think that just sort of points to the fact that Tennessee understood the game plan coming into it. They made the necessary changes, but then you have to be physical. You have to be tough. And if I'm not wrong, that toughness has been one of the most emphasized things from this coaching staff here over the last 4 or 5 weeks. as this SEC championship run sort of was building. Tennessee wanted toughness, and they certainly got it tonight.
They did, and I felt like they played the post a little bit different. They dug down a lot, which I think just kind of kept South Carolina's bigs from getting very comfortable. But even a couple times when on switches, James or Vescovy, and James sometimes it was just natural because he was playing the 4, were guarding big men. They did a really good job holding up in interior defense. So both those guys were big, and obviously Tennessee's defense I think is the biggest takeaway. They were really, really good tonight. And maybe a little bit fitting for Tennessee to win an SEC championship on a great defensive performance.
Absolutely. Tennessee will now return back to Knoxville for their final game of the regular season as the champions of the Southeastern Conference. But before we get there and start previewing that, we're going to other just kind of final takeaways here from Tennessee's win here tonight.
I'll echo what Rick Barnes said and what he thought maybe the biggest play of the game was the Kai Ziegler triple. And I can't remember
I was going to mention that too.
Exactly the time or the score. It was maybe 4 or 5 points, maybe even a little bit more than that, 6 or 7. But South Carolina was on a little bit of a run. It was getting loud. Ziegler, he did some good things tonight. I think he was 0 of 5 from 3-point or 0 of 4 from 3-point at that moment. He had just bricked one in the possession before. He comes off a screen, catches it, fires it with complete confidence, nails it. I can't remember what the phrase you said was.
Unflappable. Unflappable.
That's Kai Ziegler for you. In a night where he didn't shoot the ball fantastic, but I think that shows how much he's grown in these games where last year in the first 2 years, it felt like if he didn't hit a bunch of shots, maybe he wouldn't be as effective. Tonight, 12, 13 points, some big buckets, some big free throws, 7 assists, 1 turnover, 5 rebounds. Did a lot of really big things for Duvall tonight.
He was huge. As you can tell, maybe behind us, maybe not, the arena is getting broken down, so we're going to sort of wrap this thing up. But there's a lot more coverage coming up from us tonight. Not only do we have this video right here, I think, Ryan, you and I are going to jump on a podcast here in a little while, break down some of our extended thoughts a little bit more. But as always, you can head over to RockyTopInsider.com to go find all of our news, notes, and coverage from Tennessee's win over South Carolina here on Wednesday night in Columbia. The Tennessee Volunteers are your 2023-2024 outright SEC regular season champions. For Ryan Shumpert, I'm Rick Butler. Thanks for listening to the Rocky Top Insider postgame show.